Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is trade union activist and labor leader who serves as the General Secretary of the National Union of Textile, Garment and Tailoring Workers of Nigeria and is a member of the Executive Council of the Nigerian Labour Congress. Comrade Issa Aremu, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning and happy May Day to you all.
Yes, happy May Day to you too, comrade.
Thank you.
Well, I was just reading you this morning.
Ruben, how you doing? Happy May Day. Although I know you don't live on minimum wage, but I know you are laboring like me every day. You are also a worker.
Anyway.
No, I can see it. You are doing a wonderful job laboring on the right platform.
Thank you. I was reading you this morning, back page of this day. Very interesting piece. Congratulations. But in that piece, you know, you were describing yourself as, you were describing Aliko Dangote, you know, richest man in Africa, as your comrade. Isn't that a bit ambitious? Yeah. But let me talk more about the point you raised about labor and capital, which was something we discussed earlier with Peter Bankole. Labor and capital.
Yeah, I think, well, back to what you describe as my ambition, I still insist that Aliko Dangote is comrade in production, industrialization. You know, don't forget that the bedrock of industry is labor. And today, Aliko Dangote is the greatest employer of labor. I think after the federal government and state government combined now, in terms of direct jobs, Aliko Dangote groups employ thousands of workers, including some of my members, because he has sack factories. He used to have a textile mill before in Kano. So to that extent, we are partners in production. And that's how we knew him over the time. And don't forget, without the workers, there can't be unions. In fact, there won't be comrades. So if you define comradeship in terms of partnership, that is quite real. And the point I raised today is extremely important. I think we should underscore that point. There are two important factors of production, labor and capital. And for us to drive development, not just in Nigeria, in Africa as a whole, the greatest resource we have is our human resource, 200 million people. I want to tell you this, I mean, Ruben, you know better than me. China doesn't have oil and gas, it doesn't have gold, diamond, but it has 1.5 billion people. And with education, with capacity building for its population, today they can come to Nigeria and pick crude oil, refine, and then in turn possibly import to us. We have the raw materials, we have raw material, think of it, including oil and gas, but now we are import dependent in terms of petroleum product. The missing link is that we are not enhancing the capacity of the workforce as it used to be in the 60s, 70s. I mean, before we discover oil, you know, this country used to be one of the leading developing countries in the world. And the critical factor that drove that development was the human resource. Highly well-trained civil servant, strong, highly skilled workforce in the private sector. But today, that has been revised. Also, highly well-paid. I mean, talking about my reflection today, I tribute to Hassan Sumanu, the first president of NSC. The time we had the minimum wage was, he started it all, 125 Naira, which was equivalent to about $200, $250, because Naira was very strong then, which means that 40 years after, Nigerian workers, even with 30,000 Naira minimum wage, we just earned about $85. We are poorer than we used to be. How do you motivate the workforce? What kind of productivity can you get with this kind of pay? So what I want to say here is that let's use today to also show what the Ahmad Bello University have shown, that the country can only be, you know, on the tripod of both capital and labor. Of course, capital is extremely important. We need financing. We need money. We also need money that is targeted towards investment. And this is why great people like Aliko, they are doing very well. Not because it's just rich. Aliko is not just that it's rich, but it's used, the source of its riches is that it's coming through value addition. Instead of exporting limestone, it's adding value, turning it into cement. From import dependency on cement, now we are, you know, becoming a cement exporting nation. You know, see the largest investment in oil and gas, the Lekki refinery coming up. I mean, that would be the biggest possibly in the world. For me, that's the way Africa should go. The whole idea of decolonization, Ruben, you remember, it's not just that we need flag independence, we need political independence, I mean, economic independence also. And that's exactly what the founding fathers did. Textile, where I came from, throughout the 100 years of British rule, the British never established a single textile factory. They would rather take cotton here, take them to Manchester, spin it, weave it, and give us the cloth. And that's why the founding father, 1957, Ahmad Bello started the first textile mill in Kaduna, 1957. That was just on the eve of independence. And before you knew it, Awolowo also copied. You had NTM in Ikeja, Zik established Aba Textile Mill. By 1985, we were the third largest producer of textile. But sadly, as I'm talking to you, we have reversed that fortune now. In a way that we have become also import dependent in terms of textile. I think we need to reverse that. But the key things that led to that massive industrialization was financing was made available by states and private capital, and of course, human resources, which is labor, drove development. Our motto, the motto of Nigeria Labour Congress, labor creates wealth. So you can see that even from our motto, we know that labor and capital must work together.
Comrade Aremu, I hope we will have time to talk about revitalizing the moribund textile industry in Nigeria. But right now, I want to know, how optimistic are you about the implementation of the new minimum wage, especially because data from 2018 shows that only half of the states, 18 out of 36 states, were able to pay wages as and when due, and that only 12 of those 18 states earn a monthly revenue of, more than their recurring expenditure, 20% more. That's only 12 states. So do you think that this law is going to be signed but not implemented?
Well, I think what makes this year's May Day very significant is that, just as you said, we are celebrating just 2 weeks after President Muhammad Buhari commendably signed into law the new minimum wage of 30,000, which means it has replaced the subsisting minimum wage of 18,000. So we are quite excited, we are upbeat, but they also forget that we've been in this business for almost about 2 years. Negotiation had been on, and we've also lost almost 5-year cycle, because the last minimum wage was 2010 under President Jonathan. Ideally, we ought to have reviewed that minimum wage by 2015 or 16, so we've really lost ground on this. But we're excited that we're having a new minimum wage. And for record, let me also put it, this is the 5th minimum wage to be signed, since inception. We started in 1981, we had the review in 1990, then in 2000, then 2010, and now this year, 2019. So this is the 5th. Now, the reason why I have to bring this history is that, how was it done before? Once minimum wage becomes a law, it's legally binding. It's not subject to another round of renegotiation. No, it's unacceptable. We've done the negotiation for 1.5 years. And this last negotiation was the most inclusive. For the first time, we had representatives of the Governors Forum. Of course, they used to be there before, but this time around, 7 governors or so actively participated in this negotiation. So the outcome of 30,000 was a product of compromises, negotiation on the part of all the stakeholders, including the workers. Don't forget that our proposal that we put on the table, we were actually asking for 60,000 naira minimum wage. And we had to come down to half of that, 30,000. There are also some enlightened employers who even offer that minimum wage should be about 40,000, 50,000 from private sector. Even some governors, put it on the table that minimum wage should be more, should be close to around 40,000. But in the spirit of compromise, we look at ability to pay, the capacity of the economy, the needs of the working man and woman, because that's the bottom line. What can a worker live on? And between you and me, 30,000 is a gross, underestimation of what a worker can actually live on. And I've just given you the dollar value of it. We are worse than what it used to be 40 years ago. So in summary, to answer your question, we have already crossed that bridge. We are not open to any renegotiation. Every employer must implement. And when we talk of employer, it's not just governors or federal government. No, or private employers, the same thing. Whoever doesn't do that is sanctionable. In fact, there is sanction under the Minimum Wage Act for non-compliance with this law. So I think the bottom line is we must implement. Now, you refer to some governors who couldn't pay as the same minimum wage. No, I thought we should be talking of governors who obey the law, not lawless governors. Not lawless governors. And lawless ones cannot be the one to benchmark, you know, for respect for rule of law. No. I think this rule of law cannot be selective. It applies to working people. Now, if the governors who generously sign pension laws, you know, illegally for themselves, for non-pensionable jobs, they serve for two-term governors. They engage in all sorts of frivolous indulgences. You know the story. They got the money to run campaigns. When they are not running, they give money to their proteges. You know, they maintain all sorts of chains of advisors.
Well, comrade,
and then they come around to say, you know, they can't pay 18,000 naira, 30,000. That cannot be our benchmark. Well, I think the best way to really make Nigeria economy work is to pay working man and woman properly. Yeah.
Well, we cannot shy away from those you have referred to as lawless governors, because you do have workers in those states who have not received their salaries for up to 36 months in some states, we hear. But let me ask you another question, because your union had asked for a review of the income tax law to avoid what you call a twin assault on the new minimum wage. Has that received any response? And isn't that tantamount to earning more pay but not wanting to pay tax?
No, okay, let me also conclude on the thought process on those governors. You know, the point I'm raising here is that every worker is entitled to his pay as long as he's productive. And every worker that is paid must also be productive. That is clear. So when you refer to those so-called governors who are not paying their workers for 1 month, 2 months, and 18 months, as you have already put it, I think it's condemnable, and the workers in those states ought not to work for them. But I'm also referring to governors, states that are paid as and when due. There are 2 states today that I can mention who are leading in terms of gross domestic product, and there are states that are paying their workers very well, Lagos and Kano. They not only pay minimum wage, they pay above it, and they pay on time. Central Bank of Nigeria just released a very comprehensive report on the state of Nigeria economy, and CBN says the best way to reflate Nigeria economy is to increase effective demand, and from private sector. One of the things that are also undermining the growth of textile industry, remaining one, is poor purchasing power. You know, Nigerians can hardly buy new clothes now. They buy bend-down boutique, Bosikoro, you know, second-hand goods, clothes, because it's cheaper. I mean, that's the whole idea. They can buy new clothes, you know, produce about 3,000 naira for about 4 meters or 5 meters of African print, which I'm putting on here. You know, so that also undermines production in the industry. We have inventories or sold goods. So you need to, CBN says, improve effective demand. And the only way to do so, put money in the pockets of Nigerians, including the workers. So even enlightened governors know that their state economies can't move unless they pay their workers very well. And that's how they are sinking into poverty. You know, workers' pay is to pay rent, is to buy Omo, buy toothpaste, buy basic food. You know, if you don't pay it, market women, they can buy. They can sell. You know, so I think I want to put that one to rest. Now, about the demand, we put it on. Nigerian Labour Congress has demanded for what we call just tax, you know, or tax justice. What we mean here is that today, only the working men and women pay tax as and when due. We pay what we call pay as you earn. You don't even have a choice. Once you pay your salary, it's deducted at source. Now, when you look at the level of inequality in this country, in which the rich are getting richer, there are many people who have a lot of properties, they are not paying rent, they are under lock and key. I think The federal revenue should be more aggressive in widening the tax base, so that we can put more money into the public purse, which should be for development and also for paying the working people as I went due. And we don't need to be talking of increasing any VAT now, because that would be unfair. Nigerians are already poor. So I think this is the time to put money into Nigerians' pocket, in a way to turn the economy around. So I hope, and I think it must be so, and I think I listened to VP just during the week, they're also considering some of the options that Labour has put on the table. But the bottom line is that there's more that we can do for us to increase the revenue base of this country. But even after reviewing the revenue base, we must make sure that the revenue is properly spent for public good, not for the indulgence of few ruling elites. Yes.
Comrade, just before you go, because we're running short of time.
Hello, Ruben.
Yes, you were a gubernatorial candidate in the last general elections in Kwara State. But what was that experience like for you? You wanted to move from being an activist to, the governor of a state. What was the experience like, briefly?
Well, I thought me and you can share experience together, because I thought we're in the same boat, and I can call you a comrade in that respect, Comrade Ruben. I think the whole idea is not to separate activism in labor from activism in governance. In fact, our vision is to carry the same activism to governance. Now we have passive, characters who go to public office. They lack the kind of passion, Ruben, which you display every day. You're a fantastic writer. Anybody who reads you, even your money show, knows that you have passion for this country. How many of the people ruling us have this kind of passion? They don't even know. I think this is Bablika saying that my people died because of lack of knowledge. Nigeria needs knowledge-driven economy, knowledge-driven states, And that's what really motivated us to go into politics in Kwara. And I was very happy that we're a change agent in Kwara. We put an end to dictatorship of one party that has been there for almost 2 decades. Also, we changed the narrative. The pattern of campaign completely changed. I discovered, Ruben, I'm very sure you had the same experience, and I read part of your reflections. I discovered that most Nigerian politicians don't campaign to the people. No connectivity. We went to the market, we went to workplaces, we met the women, we met the youth students in their schools. I was shocked that in 2014, Ruben, Kwara State government could build a school for girls, about 350 girls, comprehensive junior, senior, secondary school. 2014, no toilet. Girls were taking baths outside, using themselves in public places. It was a scandal. We had to, in our little resources, with my minimum wage, we have to find a way to build toilet for those students. It's a scandal.
Thank you, comrade.
So what I'm saying here is that more than ever before, I think I'm even more energized that we have to bring the same experience we have brought in the labor movement to governance. I think Nigeria needs passionate, leaders, just the way we produce the first generation leaders. Ahmadu Bello, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, fantastic. Of course, the Sikh of Africa, philosopher King himself, a fantastic writer who challenged colonialism. He was also a mentor to Kwame Nkrumah. The kind of leaders we have today, they are visionless and they are irredeemable unless we replace them. And I think some of us have decided that we are going to do that. And I'm also following the footsteps of the founding father of the labor movement. Don't forget, we produce labor activists who have become state actors. Regardless of what we want to say, Conrad Soshomole, he did very well in Edo twice. He even paid more than minimum wage, as a governor of Edo. And for him to be recognized to lead the ruling party, that tells you the activism that we can bring to governance. So for me, we're following that tradition, because we also realize the limitation of trade union movement. We need to also be politically relevant.
Well, thank you, Comrade Issa Aremu.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for honoring our invitation, and enjoy the rest of Labor Day. Thank you very much.
It's time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Senator Shehu Sani from our Abuja studio. Stay tuned.